having a good time? Yeah? Well, this is a crazy Amiga event. Look at how many people we've got. I can't believe it's this big. And I'm Ravi Abbott, if you're wondering who's talking at the moment. And I'm from the Retro Hour podcast. So we've done a podcast every single week. And we've just hit 500 episodes. And, oh, thank you. And we absolutely love to interview people. And today is no exception. We have Erik Simon here from Thalion. Some absolutely amazing games that really push the Amiga to their limit. So we're going to do half an hour interview now as well, and just kind of get into the history. How are you doing, Erik? You okay?
Pretty good. Maybe a bit too much partying last night, but that's nobody's fault but mine.
What do you think of this event, seeing so many people here?
I must say I knew in theory the numbers, but seeing the crowd is absolutely astonishing. So that so many people are interested in what made me start in the industry and even remember some of our old games. It's absolutely amazing. It's my first time at a retro event, so I'm just flabbergasted.
Well, just talking about that, where did you start then? How did you get into the whole kind of demo scene as well? Because that was an early roots and aspect of Thalion.
Yeah, exactly. Me and a lot of people at Thalion, we came from the demo scene, and the whole thing started with the C64, as with so many people, and we marveled at these demos and everything, but we weren't creatively active. And then the new home computers came out, like the 68,000 based systems, Atari, Amiga, and well, we all didn't have that much money to be honest. So me and my friends, we were going for the Atari ST route, and there we discovered that it's much more fun to do something creative on the computer than just to copy and play games. So that's where we were coming from. And a certain mindset of getting something out of a platform that it's not even meant to do, that comes from the demo scene. Later we were just going down the professional route, and that's why this whole divide between Atari ST and Amiga that we were playing with when we were young, that wasn't relevant anymore. That's why we moved to the Amiga. It was just the more viable platform.
So you were very Atari ST based though, previously.
Yes, yeah. From our demo scene roots, we came from the Atari ST.
And what was that like in Germany as well? Were there lots of parties, copy parties as well that you went to?
Oh, certainly. Actually, the Atari ST scene was, from what I can tell, much more friendly, much less competitive than the Amiga demo scene, where we competed with each other, but we were all friends. We had these parties, demo parties, well, copied a lot of games, but the thing was really doing something creative. Was for all of us, it was absolutely forming to see, hey, there are people from France or from Sweden, and they come from all over the world to a demo party, and we all became friends and worked together on something creative that was for all of us a absolute formative experience.
So what was your handle then, and what was your group called?
Oh my God, my handle was so bad because it's just is, which is it in German, and it's my initials. Yeah, so much for keeping a secret low profile. But our demo crew was called the Exceptions on the Atari ST, and we were probably not writing the best demos, but we were writing the earliest demos, and that's why our group was and still is very famous on the Atari ST, because we were among the ones who started the whole thing.
And there's that kind of philosophy in the demo scene of pushing machines beyond their limit. Do you think that kind of went into games development, and also some of the people that you were working with as well? Did they have all individual skills to, like push graphics forwards and special hardware tricks?
Yes, that's the whole mindset, and that's what became very, very useful later as professional game development. people is not to accept the boundaries of any given system. Back then it was the hardware, the video chips and all of that. But you can apply these skills to any boundary that you have, up to budget boundaries. You always, when you come from the demo scene, you always have that mindset of, okay, we want to do this. This is basically impossible. But then you don't stop. You go like, okay, how can we fake it? And game development is still up to this very day, even with the most modern hardware, you gain a competitive advantage if you figure out things that seem to be impossible with a given platform. So that will always apply, even with modern hardware.
So at what point did it become a company? At what point were you like, we're going to take this seriously, we're going to get into gaming and move away from the demo scene?
I started studying, and I was interrupted by the German government, needed to do civil service. And I started together with a friend of mine, a role-playing game called Dragonflight. And we thought, hey, we do something like Ultima. We do something like Ultima, and just with modern 16-bit graphics. And we're doing that on the side with 2 people, and we will be better than a whole company called Origin in the US. So yeah, that was an excellent plan. But we didn't want to give up. So at some point, there was the decision to be made, either to give up the project and just learn some trade that makes money, or to stop anything else and focus on developing that game. And for me, it wasn't a question. It was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I couldn't explain my parents if we could ever earn money with that, because it wasn't clear in the middle of the 80s. That was like 86 or so. And I went for it, and I never regretted it for more than 2 weeks in a row.
So is that feeling that you had, you could do it better, and that just drove you forwards, and
Doing it better, yes, but ultimately it's that at some point I realized, as much as I like to play games, but what I like more is to actually develop games, and that's still the case even now when I'm over 60.
So what influence were you taking from other titles as well? So Karateka was one.
Maybe.
Chambers of Shaolin has some similarities.
Yes, but the inspiration for Chambers of Shaolin was less Karateka, but more in titles like IK Plus on the the 64, like these one-on-one fighting games. I played Karateka on the Apple, and I was amazed about the fluid animation and such. But these 8-bit games were more of an inspiration for that one.
And it had amazing music from what I remember as well. Very a nice tune. How did you then get different people to get involved with the company? Were you taking them from other companies, or were you poaching them from the demo scene?
It was mostly the demo scene. So even Jochen Hippel, who is, I think, quite popular still now, we were just a bunch of guys that met in a computer store in Mannheim. And we were all from little Palatian Pfälzer villages. And we magically came together, and that was the core of our demo group. Completely unlikely. And we discovered that we all have talents that work well together. With this demo group, came into the demo scene, and that's where we draw on when we founded Thalion. It was a crystallization point for all kinds of people out of the games industry. Actually, one of the reasons that I'm so hungover is that I would spend a week partying with people that I got to know back then, end of the 80s, from the UK, from all over the world, and we sort of reconnected recently. So I partied in Malta with them for a week. Guys like that went out into the industry, a tech director of Gods of War, the art director of King. He actually made these little shiny Candy Crush bubbles himself. And so the connections that we made by then, they still hold.
I was interested then, did you have like a physical office? How did the company form? Because with the demo scene, there's that kind of idea of remote work, which we have now, but it wasn't so established back then.
No. Guys, remember, we were sending disks around via post. There was no internet. There was nothing. We were not into BBS stuff. It was all BP and not enough pixels. And no, we actually needed a physical office because that was the only way to develop games.
Yeah.
Look, we didn't have a server. We were carrying floppy disks from one machine to the other in order to assemble any game. Yeah, we just needed to be in the same spot, and that was somewhere in Gütersloh, which then got flooded by crazy Swedes and French people and UK people and Dutch people, and they all came to our office.
Well, sometimes it can be said that some of the ports from the Atari ST to the Amiga weren't of the best quality. What was your approach to kind of porting games and projects?
Oh, quite frankly, when we were porting Atari ST games at the beginning to the Amiga, we did straight ports. It was just otherwise financially not viable. I mean, you cannot redo all the art from 16 colors to 32 colors. It would just not make any financial sense. However, at some point, we dropped the Atari ST because the sales numbers went down and focused on the Amiga. And we did the same on the Amiga that we did on the Atari ST, and that is to try to push its boundaries. And that's when some, I guess, quite nice-looking titles came from us. Yeah.
And I was wondering as well, coming from England, what the differences between the British game scene and the German game scene was as well, and the kind of the different regions of where you were sending these things out. There was also Australia as well. There was some Americans, so it's quite a global thing throughout Europe as well.
From what I remember, I think the German scene was very much focused on technology, on wild coding tricks to just put off some soft scrolling and stuff like that. When we were founding Thalion, we were absolutely having the mantra, okay, we know the technology, we need to focus on the fun and gameplay. But in hindsight, I think we still sort of put too much work into the technology. And in UK and in the US, well, these games ran on half our frame rate, but often they were just better games.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering then about No Second Fries as well, because that was just beautiful. The 3D work on that, and also the speed and the frame rate that it ran at. It must have been a huge effort to kind of get it to that standard.
That's solely the credit of a Swiss guy called Christian Jungen, who was an absolute amazing coder, but it was very hard to get him to finish anything. And the reason that these routines are so optimized is that he spends half a year on some core polygon drawing routine, rewriting it 150 times. And he would have spent 10 years of his life without ever releasing anything if I wouldn't have physically threatened him to finish anything. So it just took a lot of time for these 3D routines. And that's all of the magic. He was so into optimizing that he couldn't stop optimizing. And what came out of it was then mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was beautiful, but also when people had accelerators or they had more memory in their Amiga, it would actually run smoother as well, where other ones would just have that kind of lock in there.
Yeah, although I remember the Amiga show where we had run No Second Prize on a perfectly vanilla A500, and we actually, after half a day, needed to put up a big sign that like, this does not have any turbo cards or whatever. It is a vanilla Amiga because we got asked like 150 times.
People looking in the trapdoor to see if there was any trickery.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about that as well, because a lot of the titles were aimed for the kind of A500. And then you had the 1200 come out. what were the differences, and was it kind of going for that lowest common denominator, the system that everyone was going to have, the A500, and optimizing that was your priority?
Actually, we always tried to just get amazing stuff out of the lowest hardware platform, with one exception. If my memory doesn't fail me, guys, it's like 35 years ago, coming on Slack. But the Ambermoon 3D routines, these actually could use the 68020, and they did some extra stuff on the Amiga 1200.
Yeah.
So with our last games, yes, we actually used optional better hardware, but that was in the very last days. Yeah.
Which is really good to have that kind of, optimizations for a different system, put it in and it runs better as well. And then you guys came around to releasing Lionheart, which is just an absolute technical marvel. Could we get a round of applause for Lionheart? Because I just think it's such a nice game. How did you go about creating that, and how long did that project take?
I knew that I still remember we failed one deadline, but I think we only needed one extension. The history was that Erwin Klothofer and Henk Nieborg, who was the graphic artist, they approached us with a game that they made. I think it was called Ghost Battle, which was okay-ish, and Thalion published it. And then we invited the guys to make another game in our offices, and which they did. So the core team was Evan as a coder, Hank as an artist, amazing artist, and I did the game design and sort of project management. And what might be surprising, we don't do any special tricks.
Yeah.
We just use the hardware to its full extent. For example, all the colors in the first level with the parallax scrolling and everything. There was some support 3D routines with a like 3D kind of scrolling from Michael Bittner. But all we do is to use copper lists in a artful way. That's it. And all the other levels, they all use different graphics modes. I have no idea why no game that I'm aware of back then used all the video modes that the Amiga could do. They all focused on one video mode, and the whole game ran into like 16 color mode or dual play field mode or whatever. We just, depending on what the level design should be, we used the best graphics mode. And the rest was just good old-fashioned artistic talent and really good coding, but there was no kind of hardware busting tricks that we did on the Atari ST. For example, like full screen scrolling, we could do that by messing up the hardware, but we didn't need to do that on the Amiga.
And I think it was such a breakthrough title as well, because like that use of palette as well, and it running on a lower end system, but also just the artwork with Henk as well. That was one that really got people's attention. What was the reaction after you released that? Do you remember from the magazines and the wider press?
We did have some good reviews and such, but there wasn't like this overwhelming reaction. I think only in hindsight, people realized, hey, that was one of the peak technological titles of the Amiga. I don't remember that there was a lot of excitement back then, and it was also not a commercial success.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that we, coming from the demo scene, coming from the cracker scene, we were very aware that there is no such thing as a protection that works for a longer time. So we just did not protect the game at all. I don't know if Lionheart runs on an HD. Ambermoon did. No, we actually took great care that you could copy at least Ambermoon on a HD, so that it run from an HD. No protection whatsoever. Like, okay, here guys, that's the best we can do. either you buy this or we move to the PC. Well, we moved to the PC.
Yeah, and inevitably that was happening with a lot of Amiga companies as well, and some of the releases that were happening later on, and trying to fight the copy protection back then was probably a pointless endeavor or a little challenge for some people. Talking of the Amber series as well, the trilogy, what was it like doing the specific improvements for that as well? Because I know later on it got really, really big with the amount of levels and choices and options in those games.
The Amber series had one special approach, and that is that Carsten Köper, he is the main game designer. He wrote a complete editor system in BASIC, basically, that prepared all the data for the game, which was later, much later, called data-driven game design. We didn't know that this was a thing. It was like, for us, it was a bit weird. We had this guy who had a really cool role-playing game written in BASIC. It looked very bad, but there was such a lot of amount of options, and we got like, okay, we take this, we write a front end in assembler that looks and performs well based on this data set. And that was such a good experience because we could we hard-coded our games back then. And this was not a hard-coded game. This had a front end, and then with the editor you could make content in a very short time. Yeah. So we accidentally sort of discovered data-driven game design before it was even a thing. That's why these games are still so deep and have so much content.
Afterwards as well, then, Thalion weren't in the Amiga scene anymore. And you moved on to Blue Byte?
Exactly. We moved over to Blue Byte, did Albion, which was sort of a spiritual successor of the Amber series, but we didn't complete that we didn't call it an Amber series game. It's a completely different setting and everything, also for legal reasons. It's a new company and all of that. So yeah, so that was sort of our transition from the 16-bit to the PC, still using this editor set.
And then we've seen Settlers 2 here. You were working on some later Settlers titles as well for the PC. What was it like working on that series?
Oh, that was a wild ride. I didn't have anything to do with Settlers 1, Settler 1, and I think there are now efforts to bring out Settlers 2 on the Amiga, right?
Yeah, they've just got it boxed over there, so they managed to do it, which is nice to see. Yeah,
very cool. Yeah. No, the Settlers. Settlers 3 is one of the games I was involved in. I'm still proud of. Although back then, that was the first title that I took responsibility purely as a manager, so I wasn't creatively involved. And that was really, really hard and stressful. If I have so many war stories from this game, it could fill 2 hours. Just one thing, we had this multiplayer mode in there, and which was one of the very first games where you could actually play over the internet. But we also had one isolated machine in our network which was full of viruses, because we always tested the games, does it still run when the machine is infected? And there we realized, like a couple of weeks before Goldmaster, game doesn't run. We checked it, okay, maybe some virus interferes. No, we had code in there that made the game only playable with a fixed internet connection in 1996, I believe. We nearly shipped this game, and it could only run with internet connection, which maybe 5% of people had back then. God.
Limiting your audience a bit. Well, final question, because we haven't got long. I was just wondering, do you think we'll see any remasters or kind of re-releases or remakes of Thalion stuff?
Yes, I get a lot of contacts about that all the time. It's a bit complicated because of the legal situation. There seems to be a entity that still holds some rights of the Thalion titles. which isn't very communicative. So I know a few people, I'm not one of them, who tried to reach out to the company to clear the rights to do these remakes. But so far, it's not getting anywhere. So there might be a chance.
Fingers crossed.
If the legal situation is cleared. Let's see.
Hopefully we'll see that one day. Well, thank you so much, Erik, for joining us. Can we get a big round of applause?
Thank you, guys.